Welcome back to the channel. Well, a while back I did a video on a very interesting simulator that a friend of mine had built, a Piper Malibu that he built from scratch. And in the video, which I'll link above, he showed pretty much all the things that he had to do, 3D printing and otherwise, to build this simulator, and took us through a fairly lengthy point-by-point description. You might want to look at that video. But in this video, I'd like to update you on what he's done since then. Now, I recently was heading back from Oshkosh and had a chance to stop by and see what he's been doing. Now, Chuck's latest project, and it was a daunting one, was to convert from 3 monitors to a wraparound projection visual system. He also recently just converted to X-Plane 12 and made several other improvements to the sim, but I'll let Chuck point those out to you himself in just a moment. So Chuck, it's been a while since we did the video on the Malibu, and I wondered if, while I'm in the area, if you could fill me in on what improvements you've made. I can see you've created a wraparound visual.
Well, that's been the big improvement, Russ. That was about 6 months or so. I'll take the camera. About 6 months or so in the design and building and figuring out and going back and fixing it. But basically, it's a horseshoe-shaped screen. So there are two straight sides and then a semicircle in the middle. It does wrap around. You know, it's 180 degrees, but it will cover probably, I think, about 240 degrees of visual out of the airplane. I use fly-a-lease like a lot of people do, and the horseshoe is one of the pre-canned shapes that are in there. So it's relatively easy to do that. It is a 3-projector system, sir. This projector is up on the ceiling, and you can see there's a cross beam here, and then the projectors literally just lay up there. They're just kind of setting up there. Can be moved around slightly, but they are all tied to one another so that the relative position stays constant. But anyway, to go back to the projector, anyway, we have the screen frame, and I'm trying to go behind here, and you can see that it's simply just made of 1x3 wood material. The screen material itself is actually countertop material. So it was a white countertop material. I went to Home Depot and ordered that special size. I think it was 12 by 5 feet. I got 3 pieces of it and ended up attaching it to the frame. And I'll go back here. I use, these are clips that I 3D printed, and it has double-faced tape on the back of the screen, and then it's screwed to the wood frame. It works pretty good. The double-faced tape, which is the the red-backed 3M VHB tape, it's okay. It does tend to want to come off a little bit here and there. The other thing I did to help secure it is I used an aluminum channel, and the tape actually works better attaching to the aluminum channel than it does the 3D printed parts, and this is just screwed into the frame. The 2 straight side walls here, there's one over here on this side like that, and then the center is 2 half circles. They are all bolted together, and then I used a single piece of countertop material so there's no seam down the middle where the countertop material would join. The only seams in the material are, and they're actually pretty hard to see, but it's up in here, kind of basically at the end of the curved section. And you get a very nice continuous screen. The height is about 7 feet, and then the radius of the horseshoe is 4 feet, so it's 8 feet in diameter. And then I believe the 2 wings of the horseshoe come back 48 inches as well, another 4 feet. So it's, I can't remember the total length of the screen. I think it's like 17 or 18 feet, maybe wrong on that, I can't remember. It's pretty good size. As I said before, the projectors are on the superstructure, and you can see them located up here. And the most difficult part about this is getting the projectors to a point in space where you can get enough of the pixels on the screen and then nothing is shadowing the screen. As you know, I have a cockpit here, and if the projector is coming down too steep of an angle here, parts of the cockpit, and you can see where the cockpit is actually lit up here by the projector. That's out of the pilot's view, but down on the floor, and right down in here, you can see where there's some shadowing going on. but it's out of the pilot's view when you're in the airplane, so it's not a big deal. This room has almost a 9-foot ceiling down in my basement, and if it was an 8-foot ceiling or less, this would not work. This needs to be actually very, very high in order to get the proper screen coverage and not have, again, the shadowing of the cockpit. The probably two downsides of this are keeping the images aligned. So this is a wood structure. I could have done aluminum, but chose wood, just easier to work with. I think with the humidity and temperature changes, the alignment of this does go out a little bit, and you will get some ghosting. I'll try to show where that is. If we look up in here in the images, you can see there's, get it right here, there's a little bit of shadowing around some of these buildings, and that actually looks like it's out of focus. That's actually the mapping that's off a little bit, and that's due to thermal expansion and stuff that occurs in the room. And I find you probably want to remap it a few times a year. Honestly, the only time you really notice is when you're on the ground. When you're flying, you don't notice it, so it can get pretty bad before I decide that I want to do anything with it. So now the other problem besides the mapping and the blending, which is an issue, and I guess we can talk a little bit about blending. You can see some light and dark shadowing on here. The phone actually makes it worse than what it actually looks like, but that is blending that is taken care of in Fly Elise, and I have not gotten that perfected. Again, it gets to a point where it's good enough. If you want a perfection, you could probably just work on it continuously. But yeah, the blending. The other thing is the pixelation. So people talk about the screen door effect. I'm sure it won't be all you pick up on the phone, but you do get where you can kind of looks like you're looking through a screen. What Fly Elise does is it gives you like an effective pixel count. So when you map the images onto the screen, the number of usable pixels is less than what the maximum, right? So if you were to use all the pixels, you would have 100% coverage. With this setup where my projectors are in space and how they're aimed, I'm getting like 71% coverage. So I guess you could call it, it's 70% of HD, because these are HD projectors. So that's the downside. The image is not as sharp as you would see in regular like HD TV, and certainly not as sharp as a 4K type TV. I suppose you could use a 4K projector, but they're extremely expensive and you need 3 of them, so that's a non-starter in my book. Just for reference, these are Optima 1080 GTs. They are, like I said, HD. I think these are about $700 a piece. They're a short throw gaming projector, and I think they're like 34 or 3,500 lumens. I do run with the lights off in the room. With the light on, obviously it gets very washed out, but they've been good. It's obviously there's trade-offs, but it's I like it better than the LCDs. It gives you much more of a sense of the world around you, where you don't have this flat projection of the world. It's much more of a kind of a global globe sort of effect. And then the other thing is, for us who are challenged with the reading glasses, having an LCD right up against the left screen of the left window of the airplane, and you're focusing on that, it's very hard to see clearly because it's so close to your face that it's inside your focus range. And then you look at the front one and that's in focus. That got to be very kind of irritating. So this to me gives me a very nice fully immersed area. You can't see any of the room when you're in the cockpit unless you really crane your head around, but yeah, the effect is pretty good. And I will say, whenever we have people over to the house, a line forms at the door because everybody wants to try it.
Chuck, I noticed you had added a window. Why did you add that window on the side?
Yep.
I had a chance to fly this, and you've added some depth to it. It really looks realistic. Why did you do that? And are you going to do the other window? I noticed the other side it's not.
Right. So yeah. So I took just some thin. I think it was polycarbonate. I think it's 1/16 inch, and it's actually, if we come around to the outside, it's actually stood off of the cockpit a shell by, I don't know, an inch or so. And then what I did is put foam around here to just give it some depth. And what that really does is helps to collimate your view. It makes it look more realistic. I mean, the cockpit actually has, fuselage shell has thickness, but what it does is it provides a little bit of collimation in here so that if you pull your head way forward, it takes a little more effort to see off of the screen. So it helps quite a bit with the immersion, and it also gives you the effect that it is a thicker cockpit. It's not, it's more real. It's not just a thin piece of, fiberglass that the cockpit is made out of.
And when I flew it, I noticed the reflection of the ForeFlight and the instruments off that glass gave it a really realistic look that was missing before. So I really like that. I gotta say that having flown a lot with VR and having been in your simulator, I think the immersion is at least as good as VR. Obviously, the visual quality of the outside scenery is not quite as good as VR, but the ability to manipulate the cockpit, and especially for night flying, when the images in VR are difficult, it's much better. So for training, I just think you've got a great setup here, and I'm just amazed that you keep improving it.
Well, let me show you, Russ, my latest improvement too. While we're talking about improvements, I forgot about this. Probably not real functional, but if I turn on the batteries, if we look over here, I now have a circuit breaker panel. It's all backlit. I had some painted clear acrylic. I had it lasered with the various systems on here. And all these breakers do work for the systems that I have. So to actually pull it out, they are tied into Air Manager and Arduino, and things will turn on and off. So just adds a little bit more realism and feel that you're inside of a real airplane, and they actually worked out pretty well.
Thanks, Chuck, for sharing your simulator with us. It's really inspiring to see what you've done over the last several years, and really one of the finer examples of a general aviation home-built simulator I've ever seen. And we look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Well, there you have it. There's a nice tour of Chuck's simulator. He continues to improve it. Really amazing what he's done. Just love the detail of his work, right from all the fine upholstery that he's done, the circuit breaker panel that works, which is unbelievable. Actually, some real engineering there, and Chuck certainly does that. Very nice instrumentation, which was already available. Force feedback yoke, dual GPS, which he built from scratch. Using 3D printing and all the other instruments, even some of the instruments, real instruments that have been converted, like the S-Tech Autopilot, converted over to use with Air Manager and used with X-Plane. And then, of course, the visuals, the beautiful wraparound visuals. He's finally got it dialed in. This is a more recent video that he sent me, and you can see that the rain effects and all that from X-Plane 12 looking great. Look at the reflection off the window, which adds a real realism to the thing. I never thought the solid windows made much sense in a simulator, but I can see the value here. And with the visuals dialed in, really an impressive piece of simulation. You know, I'm a big VR fan, but I got to say that for certain people, this is the perfect solution, especially if you're going to be doing training. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope you'll like, subscribe, share with your friends. I love your comments, and I hope I'll see you on my next video. Thank you.